Greetings, pilgrims. Welcome to another episode of the Polygon Pilgrimage, and today we are continuing with our inventory series. Now, I want to show you where we're at and where we're headed, and today is going to be a bunch of code. I apologize, not a lot of visuals, but this is very important, and we're almost there. So, I have an update to this one script, and we're going to work on another one together today, and we're going to explore something called a scriptable object. Now, this is a brand new concept for some of you, and it's okay. I'm going to step you through it. So, let's talk about for a quick second where we left off. So we have our character here, and we can run around and we can pick up items. Now, if I click on our BRS mechanics, we can see our inventory here. We have 1 light bullets in our inventory, right? And we went through this whole thing last time where if I click it, pick everything up. Let's do this. I'm going to pick it all up. Boop. Grab this guy. Grab this guy. Grab this one. Now we should be able to pick up everything except this last one because we're full, right? So now that we have this working, we need to prepare the in-between of this and getting things to show up here, like this. So if I pick up an object, I want this icon to appear here, right? Well, it's not quite that simple. We need to have something in the middle. And if you remember our diagram, which I'll put the diagram on the screen here. So we have our inventory item and we pick it up from the ground. That object on the ground in the world, that has to go to our database. And our database here is our blueprint. It's our cookie cutter to say, here's all the stuff, all the settings that are related to this object. And that's what gets passed to our actual inventory manager. And our inventory manager is that thing you just saw on the side where I was listing off the bullets that we have. And from there, it will pass a notification to the screen, okay? All right, so here we are back, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna build that part up here today. That database of what are all the aspects of this item. So if you think about it, for our bullets here, there's a lot of information related to even something as simple as, oh, I just want to pick up a couple bullets for my gun, right? Well, you need to know what type of gun does this bullet work inside of? What type of model do I need? What type of texture do I need? What's the name of it? How many are there? What's the classification? What's the rarity? You know, all of those things. And then you need to even know about, for this game screen, what's the icon that needs to appear. Now, I know bullets won't appear here, but you know, guns and other items we pick up will appear here. So what's the icon that appears? We need to have 2 icons, one for it when it's just sitting in inventory, and one when you hover over it to say, this is the one that I want to be active. So we need a whole bunch of information. And the best way to get this is with something called a scriptable object. It's nice, it's lightweight, and we can access it from almost anywhere inside of Unity. So I already have a script working that shows an example of one of these. So I'll show you an example of one, and then we're going to build one together. So this is what the script looks like, and this is just defining some parameters. So if I go back into my inventory, you'll see there are these 2 items, and they're pretty cool because it's just this little gray thing with a Unity logo on it. Makes it nice and easy to identify it. And I just made a couple of test items here. But if I select these are scriptable objects. Now these are just sort of like imagine an empty box floating in the sky. And we're just going to put a bunch of stuff in it. And then our code can connect to that box and say, yo, I need to look something up. It's just like if you have a friend, you would say, I need to call my friend and find out, what shirt are you wearing today? You know, you're calling another thing for information, and then you're using that to then do something else. So for this test item, you can see I gave it a name. Its name is test item. It has a description. It has an icon. And then this unselected background and selected background. Those are the 2 icons we just talked about. So those are when I have it selected, it's going to get a little bit bigger, basically. And when I don't select it, it's going to get a little bit smaller. Then I've made some drop downs here. So you can even change it. Once you've created it, you can even change it here and say, what kind is it? Is it a consumable? Is it a weapon? What type of ammo is it if it's an ammo? And you can change these and you can add to these, and I'll show you how that works. It's all kinds of good. And down here under the weapon, if it's a weapon, so we would have in the code what's called a branch. So if it's a weapon, it would look at these things. If it's not a weapon, it's going to just ignore all of this. But we can put all this in here. So if you were not creating a weapon, if you would just right click and say, I want to create one of these things, and you know it's not going to be a weapon, you just don't fill these in. It's that easy. I filled these in just as an example for you guys today. So here we can set up our reload speed, max fire, max ammo, max magazine size, range, durability. If you want to have weapons break over time, we could do a durability right there. How much weight does it have? This will be useful for when we do like a PUBG-like system where the items is not so much how many slots you have, but how much it weighs. And then the actual pickup is this thing here that we have on the floor, because when we bring this into our inventory, if we drop it again, we have to go reverse. We have to tell the inventory manager, hey, I need to make one of these things and drop it on the floor. So go back and look up this thing's scriptable object and get all these stats, and then build one of those and put it in the world. And that's really important for if you have an object like, say this was a gun, and I shot it a bunch of times. So say it had 100 durability and I shot it 8 times. Well, it would have to now have 92 durability, and I drop it on the floor. So it would keep this in memory, and then when it builds a new one, it would actually destroy the original and just build a new one with 92 durability. So these things are very important. So let me show you the script and how it works, and it's really not that hard. And then we're going to build one ourselves, okay? So this is the script. It's very easy, and we're going to build one all on our own here. So let me just go ahead and close this down, and we're going to start a brand new one together. Okay, so what we're going to do here is right-click and say Create C# script. All right, and we're going to call this tutorial inv item. Okay, for tutorial inventory item. Cool. Let's open this up, and it's going to open in MonoDevelop here in a second. Come on, Mono. It's thinking about it. It's working on it. Come on, Mono. I'm so used to Visual Studio now. There we go. Okay. Here we are, tutorial inventory item. So what we need to do is right at the top here, we need to change this classification. So we're not actually going to be coming from mono behavior. We're going to come from a scriptable object. Like that. Scriptable object, capital O, capital S. So that's going to be our new parent class that we're going to inherit from. That's where we're going to get all of our data from. So then above that, what we need to do is create this special line. And this is to make it so that when you right click inside of Unity, you can create a new object. So let me show you real fast. If I were to go to inventory, and you see how I have these two here, if I right click under create, look at the very top, I have inventory item. That's the thing that I made already, right? So we're going to make a new one. It'll say tutorial inventory item. So if I click this, it puts a brand new one here, and I can start filling in the data. How cool is that, right? So that's what we're going to do together today. So let's delete that and go back into here. Okay, so to make that happen, we have to tell Unity, hey, this is a thing that you can create. So this is called create asset menu. And then we're going to say, all right, now what's the file name? The file name is going to be, you can give it a default. So let's call it tutorial in item. So this is going to be the name that appears in the asset browser. And then we're going to say, what's the menu name? The menu name is going to be the thing that you see on the right click menu. So let's call this tutorial in item, new, or here we go. Let's call that new inventory. That way we'll see a difference in them. So new tutorial inventory item. Cool. Then you have to close our parens and close our brackets. There you go. That's all it takes. So if we build this real quick, should be fine because there's nothing in it yet. There we go. Come back to Unity, give it a second to compile. You can always tell it's compiling. In the bottom right hand corner, you'll see the little circle going. There you go. Now if I right click and say create, look at this. New tutorial inventory item. Very cool. And at the moment, it's going to be absolutely nothing. See, there's absolutely nothing in here. So now we need to add some stuff into it, right? Okay, so to add some stuff, we don't really need the start or update because it's not actually doing anything that is code yet. It's just going to be lots of parameters. So let's get rid of all of that. And now we can give it a couple of things. So let's give it a public string. We'll call that name. We can give it a name, right? We also want a string for the description. Description. There we go. And then we can give it a couple of things. So if you want to add an image, so like I was doing with the icons, this is called a texture 2D. And you just give it a name. So icon. I'll do another one real quick. So texture 2D. And we'll call this, background if you want that. So this is how you would add these different parameters to it. Now, say you wanted to add one of those cool drop downs, right? Well, this is called an enumerator or a enum, right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say public and enum, and then we're going to call it something like, the one I did was item type. So let's do item type. And I'm going to call it item type enum because we're just defining something right now. And then in a moment here, we're going to actually create it. So in here you can put anything you want. So this could be weapon, this could be healing, this could be, throwable, anything you want. We're doing Fortnite, right? So llama, anything you want in there. So just do all of that. Then after that, we're going to do a new of that type. So it's going to be public item type enum. Oops, there it is. And then now you give it the official name of the thing that's going to show up. So like that, okay? So now let's go ahead and build that, and I'll show you how that works. Okay, give it a second. It's almost done. There we go. Now if I right click, create, new tutorial inventory item, see here we have all the things we put in. So now for this new item, I can give it a name. So let's give it a name, test item. This is a test item for the video. There we go. Now these texture 2Ds, you can click here and add any picture that you have inside your whole project here. So I'm just going to add a couple of things. So there we go. There's one of those. And then we'll come down here and just add something random like this. There you go. And now here's our item type drop down. And there you go. You can choose anything you want, including llama. So if you look at the code here, what we've got is the definition of what it's going to be first. We have to define the parameters. Kind of like buying a new car. You're going to say, well, I want an SUV. I want it to be black. I want all these things. Then down here, this line is actually getting the SUV now. This is the actual implementation of that thing that you defined earlier. So here using the public enum, and then down here we're going to define, so here we're defining an enum and calling it this, and here we're defining this and saying, but this is what I want you to call it right here. Item type, llama. Cool, okay. So that's one way to do that. Now, the one thing I did notice about the public enums, you saw my other one, it's difficult to have numbers or spaces, so trying to make it like a full word like this. So that might be difficult, but I think you'll be okay. Now, the other thing that I've done in my code before that I've gotten a lot of questions about, so I just wanted to make it clear, is how to do the cool headers. Because right now, everything's all kind of crunched together here, and we don't really have a lot of space between this, and it could kind of blur together a little bit. So let's make a header. So you just do a bracket, header, okay? And then in parentheses, in quotations, you put the name of whatever you want to do. So let's do the weapon stuff, right? So let's say this is going to be a weapons section. And underneath this, now we just put a whole bunch of whatever we want. So I'm going to put some public floats down here. So these are going to be for all of our different values. So I'll show you in a second. Right here. So reload speed, right? Reload speed. And then I want fire rate, how fast the gun can fire. And then I want, max ammo, how much ammo can it hold. And then I want things like magazine size. Ooh. There we go. So how much per magazine can you hold? And then need a range, how far can it fire? Things like that. So now if we hit build on this, oh, I missed a print. Yep. That's important. Otherwise it doesn't know where to stop. Okay, as usual, we'll let it compile for a second. Cue elevator music. There we go. Okay, now if we right click and say create new inventory item, here's all our stuff. And here you notice that not only does it give us a bold weapon, because that was the header that we gave it, but the headers automatically put a bit of a space, which is nice. You can kind of space these out. I know there's a way to do like boxes around these and all kinds of fancy stuff, but I just think that the headers help me organize my values a lot better. And it helps that when you're building something complex like this, we've got 4 different systems that are talking to each other. And when you're doing that, being clear and precise about what you're doing is very important. Okay, and you'll notice that if I go back to my old item that we created before, it's been updated with that as well. So you don't have to worry about creating a brand new one and then transferring over all of this stuff. It actually updated because it's pulling from the scriptable object kind of, this is the blueprint for what scriptable objects are, and then scriptable objects are going to be our blueprint for what items are in our inventory. Okay, so that's good right there. Now, one last thing I want to show you is some of the updates and how we're doing things with the inventory stuff and how we're doing the different code. So I want to show you this. Let's see. So this you saw last time. The update has been made here in the inventory in the BRS UI manager. So this is the thing that actually manages, let's go to the screen view, well, let's play it. This is the thing that actually manages these icons down here. And as I talked about last time, right now I have it hard coded that if I hit the letter P, it just spawns one and puts it right here in this spot. So what I did recently was did some math for you guys based upon the screen size being at a 1920 by 1080 resolution, with these icons being where they are, and with following some of the math of where the canvas items end up. Let's take a look at that really quick. So the BRS UI object, which has the UI manager script on it, this is transformed, it has been reset. So it's 000111 for the scale. Okay, that's important. Then we have here the canvas underneath that, and it generates some of these numbers based upon the settings I've put. So this is an important thing I wanted to go over really fast. So I have this set as a screen space overlay, pixel perfect, scale with screen size under this canvas scaler here. Reference revolution is 1920 by 1080, and I have it to favor the width rather than anything else. And the reference pixels per, I just put 1920, and there you go. And you can see the old scripts I've disabled because we're not using those for this purpose. So with that in place, then the inventory UI, this is an object that is a container for all of these. And that container is at these positions, -554, 60, 0, with a width of 540. That's the entire width from here to here, and a height of 80, and that's the width from here to here. Okay? So that's important, and this has a bottom right-hand anchor. So based upon that math, when I spawn these items, they have to be at certain positions, and these positions are, they get spawned, they become a child of this object, and then they get moved to line up with these objects. So you notice that these objects that are the backgrounds, which will be invisible when we finish the game, but this inventory slot 1 in particular has a position of -230, 0, with a height and width of 80, and has a center pivot. That's important to note. Now, if you look at this inventory item clone, he also has a center pivot with -230, 0, 80, 80. So he ends up right here. However, when you do the math and when you do the spawning, it doesn't quite work that way. So let's take a look at the code and I'll show you and try to explain. Okay, so when I call this code right here, and I press the P key, it's going to call this function add inventory icon. And right now I'm passing it an index of 0, which is the first item in our list. Makes sense. So let's go down here and look at add inventory icon. It's looking for an index, an integer slot number, and we're giving it 0. So it's going to say, okay, cool. We're going to make this new thing called new icon, which I believe I defined up here. New icon is a game object, okay? So down here, we're going to say instantiate inventory icon base. What is the base icon? With no specialness about it, no specifics to any gun, anything like that. What is the base icon? And that base icon is also defined up here. And we'll look at that in a second. So down here then, we're going to spawn that. Then we're going to say, put its transform.setParent equal to the inventory UI area, that thing that we just talked about, right? Set its scale to 111, make sure it's not scaled any kind of funny. And down here, this was the interesting part. I couldn't just move it to the -230. It was way off in La La Land. So we had to do some magic. And we did some math, and it turns out, I'm sure this is based upon the fact that this is 40, which is half of the full size of the icon, which if you divide by half vertically and horizontally, you get the center, right? That makes sense. So we just made this variable we jokingly called magic, and it's equal to 40 plus the slot number times 92. 92 is the maximum size of the icon, so something in this equation here makes it work. And I apologize, I don't really know why, my dad and I spent hours on this trying to figure this out, but it works. It works flawlessly every time if you do it just like this. So there you go. So transform local position is equal to vector 3, and on the X only, because it's a horizontal row and we're not going to move it up and down, magic, which magic, as you see, is right here. And then 40, because that's half, so we go to the center of that row. And there you go, it works. So, for example, if I were to put this as 1, we'd get the next one, right? So let's go ahead and build this. So now when I play the game, after it give it a second to compile, when I hit the P key, we're going to spawn an icon in the second inventory slot. So let's do that. Start the game, and I'm going to hit P key right now. There you go. Now you'll notice a couple of things. It's a little bit bigger than the one next to it because this is the selected version, so we're going to work that out. I just threw one of the two in there, crapshoot. So it will spawn the unselected version, and then we have this border here. And you can see that is called the frame. That's this guy. So let's hide him. There he is. Excuse me. So this frame will move based upon the numbers you press to move that frame back and forth. And then if the icon here, you'll notice, remember our icon we built has two versions of itself, an unselected and a selected. It will be selected by default unless it'll do a check every so often and say, am I in the same position as the frame? Or rather, when the frame moves, it'll say, get the icon that's in my position and tell it to update to the selected version. Because right now that's what's showing. If I turn that off, the unselected should show up. There you go. So the unselected will go there. So it'll shrink down to that smaller unselected size. And that's the idea with the code. So that's going to be what we're going to work on next time is we have all of this working now. We have the ability to add an icon at a position, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to be linking up with our objects here to get the information we need. Specifically, if you look at the test item I have here, here's the unselected and the selected background image. So what we're going to be doing is in the code, we're going to say when we pick this up, if we can add it to our inventory, go ahead and do so. And by the way, once we tell the inventory manager that we're adding it, now tell the UI, and what the UI is going to do is it's going to call this function, but it's first going to have looked up this scriptable object we made today and say, I need to get some information first. I need to know about this item. Well, thankfully, happily, we did that today. We made our new item. We said, here's the background icons you need to, put the icon on the screen. So it's really cool. It's all coming together, guys. We're almost there. I appreciate your time and patience and sticking with me. And if you have any trouble with it, let me know. I know it's a little complicated, and it's complicated because it's complicated, and then it's complicated because I'm still learning it and I'm kind of figuring out, and then I want to share with you what it is, and it's not always a finished product, and it's a work in progress. That's okay. We're all works in progress, and we're all learning, and that's the whole point. So I will provide you with the updated to this script, which has this part at the bottom here, and you'll be able to just press the letter P and see it kind of pop up on the screen. But it won't be completely hooked up yet, so bear with me on that. And then I will provide you with my version of this script, which you can see here, which is the one you saw originally. With all of this, you can take it apart. But then we also made one together during the episode, so feel free to follow along and do that as well. And I don't think anything else has changed. This has not changed. But I'll provide updates to all the scripts. Item Manager, the Inventory Manager, the UI Manager, and the new inventory item. So I'll put all of that in the zip file in the download, and then you guys can play around with your little scene here and play with your items. So thanks again, guys, very much. I hope you have enjoyed. So as always, guys, keep practicing, get better, and I'll see you next time as the pilgrimage continues.